he died during the evening, during the night. And it must have been about 11 o'clock at night that Padre Matheson was asked to do the right thing by these two blokes. And he had no clothes on, I don't think, Padre Matheson. And at first he wouldn't do the sermon, but the blokes prevailed upon him. Well, you know, Bishop, doesn't matter how you come into the world, this is the way you came in, so do your job. So he carried out a service when we passed these two blokes over the side. It must have been just after midnight on that night. We were sailing along merrily, pulling on the oars, and I think I don't know whether we had the sail up. We might have had the sail up, I don't quite recall. I know we were rowing and we hit a reef right off the shore, and we stove in the bow of this lifeboat, which of course would have sunk. So we all had to abandon that jolly thing, and fortunately for all of us, where we hit the reef, it was just a low reef in either low tide or whatever, I don't know, but it was just on the level of the surface of the ocean, and we were able to step from the lifeboat onto this reef. And that reef was like a platform out from the beach, and then it dropped off into the ocean. We were able to walk across that reef for about 20 yards until we hit a little bit of beach, which was probably about 30 foot long, the beach, and about 10 or 12 feet wide, surrounded by coconut palms. There was just a little inlet there. And so, of course, all of us were all exhausted by this time, covered in oil fuel. Most of us were blind or semi-blind. And we all just crashed on the deck, on the sand, and went to sleep. One man who was still wounded, badly wounded, he died during the night, during that period. We didn't know till we woke up. The sun woke us up because the oil fuel started to burn on our bodies, and so we all woke up. Then I realised how bad Gavin was injured with his leg. He couldn't move. And there was one or two others wounded to different degrees, but not as badly as Gavin. And then this chap that died, well, we had to bury him on the beach, which we did, and we got the help of a couple of native boys to do that for us, who had come around the little headland and were looking at us, and we wanted to get something, and there was coconuts up in the tree, so we asked them to shin up the tree, which they did. And they knocked down a couple of numbers of coconuts, and they opened them for us with their machetes, and we were able to drink coconut milk, which was a godsend. And they helped us bury with their machetes. They helped bury the hole, dig the hole to bury this poor chap that died.
Do you remember who it was?
I believe, I don't know his name, and I never found anyone that did know his name, but I believe he was a stoker from WA.
Yeah, and
but I don't know any more than that about him.
McWilliam doesn't mean it. McWilliam doesn't mean it.
No, I couldn't tell you his name if I heard it. I never knew anyone that did know him.
No.
But that's all I heard about him. Anyway, these natives helped us dig the hole for this poor chap, and we buried him ultimately, and we then had a council of war as to what we were going to do with it. By this time there were 70 of us lined up on the beach in different degrees of blindness and injury and hunger and everything, and tired. So we got Gavin Campbell and another bloke and a sailor by the name of, not Happy Hawkins, I'll think of it shortly. No, he was a Queenslander anyway, and he'd been injured in the shoulder, and he decided to help Gavin Campbell, and I think there was another one who was injured. They took off on their own, more or less, to look for assistance. And the mob that I was with, they ended up in about 20 odd in our group, 20 to 25 of us in our group, and we had to go that way. Just beyond this little bit of beach that we were in was a bitumen road going two directions, east or west I think they would have been. And we went this way, and Gavin and the other group went that way. And Padre Matheson was in my group, and Gillam, yeah, that's right, and a couple of chief petty officers, Hogman and one or two others. And we started to march. We'd only gone a little way when we came across what looked like a little infant health centre to what we have here called infant health centres. And there was a nurse there, and she didn't have much there. It was only an infant health centre, I think. She had a few baby biscuits. She had a little bit of bandage there, but not much. She had a cupboard with some sarongs in. So I was given a sarong because I had nothing on. I'd gotten this far with a couple of lily leaves stuck up, one in the front and one in the back of my belt to make myself look decent. That was after I left the beach. Anyway, I got a sarong out of this, which made me feel a lot more respectable. And she was able to give some blokes, look after the ones that were wounded a little bit more. And she also was able to bathe some of the eyes with something. Anyway, she couldn't help us any more than that. She apologised most profusely. She was a little, very nice little Dutch lady in a uniform, nurse's uniform. And we set off again. Well, we walked all that day and night. In the evening we came across a native village, asked for food. We saw the headman there, and he spoke to Gillum, our officer, and he gave us about 2 or 3 handfuls of rice in a banana leaf to divide amongst the 20 of us. So we all got about a mouthful of rice, cooked rice, to eat. And then we just crashed on the roadside more or less that night and slept there. And woke up in the morning and set off again. We came across another native village on the second day, around about lunchtime, and there we asked the headman to help us. He came out and greeted us and spoke to Gillum again, and he said, "We want food, can you help us? Have you got any soap that you can give us?" You know. And he eventually came out with a couple of bars of yellow soap, and again he brought out a little quantity of rice in a container, which we shared amongst 20 odd blokes, which was very little. But the soap, in the centre of this village there was a well and a pump. And so we were all able to get underneath this water and wash ourselves with soap. It was not very successful in soil fuel, it was only cold water and it didn't have much, but we were able to relieve our blindness. Most of us were still partially blind, you could hardly see very far. And they were burning, of course, but we were able to clear our eyes pretty well with the water and a little bit of soap. And we walked for the rest of that day and slept again on the roadside. The next day, about midday again, we were approached by a lot of about 20 or 30 natives who were very threatening. They were brandishing their machetes, a couple of them had spears, and they were yelling at us, you know. And Gillum, I know, said to us, "Well, boys, I don't know, this is what we're going to do." We had no arms of any sort. 1 or 2 of us had sticks that we were using as a walking stick. And he said, "The best thing we could do is stand together and see what crops up." So we stood looking at one another, these 2 groups, and then around came another native in a cart of some sort, and he could speak English. And he spoke to Gillum and asked who we were, and he said, "We're Australian sailors. Our ship's been sunk and we're here to help the Dutch." And whatever went on between them, but he said, "Well, you wait here and I'll get help." So we waited there, and about an hour later, around the headland or around the roadside where we were, came half a dozen carts drawn by little donkeys or car horses of some sort. And they each had a driver with a Japanese armband on their arm. So we got into the carts and we ended up in what became known as, or what is known as, Pandyglang Jail, which was just a little bit off the coast of South Strait apparently, when you look at a road map now. And we all got into